Hello, this is Jordan. This video is being recorded on the very late evening of Sunday, September 11th, 2022. Thank you for joining me. And this is the weekly wrap-up video, which I normally will intend to do on Fridays, if not at the end of the weekend. So this is more of a weekly preview for precious metals. And so let's go through it quickly. Gold and silver bounced last week. Had a good day at the end of last week. And last week, of course, the stock market bounced as well. However, if we look at the gains in the stocks, the gains in the stocks were, the indices were 5, 6, 6.5% on the week. I believe S&P was up about 3.5%. Silver was up, I want to say 3.5 or 4%. Gold was up only 0.3%. So sometimes you can see that. When the stock market rallies, you can have the miners rallying with them and gold not doing as well, especially in real terms. But, the bigger story, I think, is really silver. With respect to the last week, the gold-silver ratio has come back several points. Silver was down in the 17s, rallied up, closed the week at 1877, so pretty close to 19. Resistance there around 21, really stiff resistance at 22. And the blue arrow, that just shows, around that low, the net speculative position in silver. A lot of people are talking about this, but I looked, and as a percentage of open interest, it was actually the second lowest or the second most bullish. In fact, the speculators, which are usually almost always net short, net long, when they do get net short, it has happened a handful of times in the last, several decades. 20, 30, 35 years. When that usually happens, you see some kind of low in the market, at least some kind of a rebound. And again, as a percentage of open interest, looking at my data, going back, I think to the late 80s or early 90s, this is the second most bullish position when we look at the net spec position divided by open interest. And again, the speculators are net short. All the time they're usually net long. And so the most bullish position was actually at the summer low in 2018. So that this is a positive, and we've already seen silver rally a bit, as I said. So, look for that position to unwind. And, so silver has potential here to rally to, I think, at least 21. And I think Vince Lancy mentioned this when I interviewed him. Shout out to him. But silver can probably pull gold higher here, even though silver's, at least in the last week, it really outperformed gold. So, if we think silver can get to 21 here, it's probably going to pull gold higher. The net spec position in gold, there's still a few too many specs. I would, if that position was down below 15%, around 10%, I would be a lot more comfortable with thinking, this could really be a significant low. And it still might be, I don't know. But for me, that the net spec position is a little bit high. Those are the percentage. I put the percentages there as a percentage of open interest. But nevertheless, if we see a bit of a rally here in gold, there's a confluence of resistance around 1830 to 1835. So if we're going to get a good rebound here, which is going to last for more than a week or week and a half or 2 weeks, we're probably going to see this run up to 1830, 1835. And look for initial resistance, probably 1790, 1795 in that area. Excuse me. So I think that's where we are. And, obviously if this strength were to reverse course, gold has support at 1700, 1675, and silver obviously at the recent low. But I think the odds favor the upside in the very short term. Okay, let's talk about the miners. And as I said, really strong week last week. You had These indices right here, these ETFs were up 5 to 6% across the board, outperforming the stock market. You like to see that. We don't like to see them going up together. That's not that important here in the very, very short term. That's more of an issue as we move out a couple months. But, looking at the potential for a rally here, what would the targets be? I mean, GDX 29 is going to be really strong resistance. So, first you would say 27. I could have drew a red line there. I mean, if you're looking at just the price action since July, it looks like in the low 27s. That's probably going to be initial resistance, and then 29. And so for GDXJ, if GDX is able to rally up to 29, GDXJ has been outperforming GDX. So GDXJ could potentially rally up to 36 or 37, but I think 34 or 35, I think pretty good chance of testing that. Now looking at SIL, I'm not as keen on that as I am on the others, because the silver ETFs, I mean, there's not that many pure silver companies anymore. The silver ETFs are just, a lot of those companies are base metals companies. A lot of those larger silver companies are, gold is a big part of their business. So that's why I don't follow the silver stock ETFs as much. But, all that aside, SIL, low 27s here, that obviously is going to be a level and probably the initial target. And, I'll just wrap this up, and I'll try and be brief, which I rarely am. But, when I talked about this in my Corlin interview last Wednesday, I realized that sentiment really was getting really, really bearish, anecdotally speaking. And I mentioned in my premium weekly update, not this weekend, but if you go back to the last weekend, the Thursday trading before that, on that day, I forgot to check it, but you had I think 70% of GDX made a new 52-week low. And for GDXJ, it was somewhere in the 50%, 55% range. And when you get that kind of a spike in new 52-week lows, it almost always marks a bottom. Not necessarily that you're going to bottom that day, but actually we may have bottomed that day. Honestly, I have to go back and look at everything. But when you get that kind of a spike in the new 52-week lows, you're probably setting up for a rebound. That just even on its own, it's that powerful. So you factor that in. And in addition to that, we have the silver sentiment, which we talked about, the net spec position as of last week. That data is as of last Tuesday, the second most bullish point. And, obviously in the last week, we've seen bullish price action, so that's good. But the anecdote, getting back to, my Wednesday interview with the Corlin guys, and they told me everyone we've talked to is bearish on gold. Everyone we've talked to thinks gold is going to break 1675. And, I'm getting emails about other people, their gold is going to go to 1300, or there's a breakdown target of 1200. This is 2013 all over again. If you look at just anecdotally, if I look at the amount of new subscribers, it's plummeted in the last 2 months. I mean, that happens around major lows. What else? And then in the last couple weeks, I mentioned silver could go to 14 or 15. It's still a possibility. The technicals line up, but I'm throwing myself into that anecdotal pile of evidence. And so there's hard data that supports at least a short-term rebound here, and potentially a pretty good one. And in addition to that, you have all this negative sentiment, just anecdotally speaking. All these things are really piling up. And, I'm not saying, we're at a major bottom here. This is a bot because I don't know. Nobody knows. I mean, there's a lot of mixed data. But, I think about those things. And the other thing is, if you're making a bearish case on gold right now, at least over the next couple months, 3-4 months, there's really not a good case to make. And the reason I say that is because the Fed, after September, most of their hiking is already done. Even if they can get to 4% by the end of the year, most of their hiking has already been done. So if you're a bear, what are you betting on? I mean, are you betting we're going to have this huge deflationary wipeout or crash in the next couple months? Are you betting that the Fed is going to they're going to hike. The peak rate is not going to be 4. It's going to be 4.25 or 4.50 next year. I mean, I don't think anybody sees that happening. So I don't mean to ramble on and on. I mean, I could have put, the fundamental analysis in another video, but getting back to the very short term, I think the probabilities strongly favor we're going to have a rally here. It could be a pretty good one. And just in a larger sense, when you have that much anecdotal sentiment, it just tells you that, all these people have already sold or they're positioned bearishly. And so we just have to keep an open mind and realize that, things can just suddenly turn. Look, even if November, December is the last hike, it wouldn't be that crazy to, have precious metals bottom in September. I'm not predicting that. I'm just saying that's not an unreasonable, expectation. So I think I went too long on my 1 minute wrap up here, but those are just my thoughts heading into the week. Let me know what you think in the comments below, and I'll talk to you guys in another video.